Okay. Hi, everybody. Okay, maybe nice to meet you, or maybe some of you already actually have seen me or any of the team. So we are here today to discuss and introduce a little bit about Japanese indie or Dojin game design scenes, and plus some little bit history about Tokyo game market as well. And so, yeah, thank you for actually giving us this opportunity. Thanks really for the UNPOP and UNPOP staff members and all the communities. And yeah, we're so glad to be here today. And so, maybe we can just introduce. Oh, maybe yeah. So this is where these are the things we are going to cover today, and then so pretty much the basics about the Dojin or indie games in Japan, and then how those indie designers create their games, and then also brief history of the Tokyo game market, because the Dojin game designs and the Tokyo game market, they cannot be actually kind of like separate each other, and they're kind of like all just one thing. And then we discuss a little bit in depth about the characteristics of Dojin games, and we kind of just go through the more like just flip in some photos from Tokyo Game Market 2020 spring. It was back in April, I think. Yes, and then at the last part, more like talk about the about and around the topic more like freely in the form. And so maybe introduction first, just quickly. So okay, so I'm Ayako, and I'm from Big Cat Games, and I've been introducing and kind of like promoting and also selling um, Japanese Dojin games directly imported from those small publishers and also individuals who design games. And I have this, I'm running this online shop, as well as I run a booth at events like PAX Unplugged, and then some other like local smaller conventions as well. And yep, that's what I do.
Hi everyone, I'm Dan. I run a small indie game publisher called Ninja Star Games. I'm located in Southern California, and mainly I using my heritage. I go back to Japan occasionally, trying to find some hidden gems that a lot of people have not heard of. Find those games and then publish them mainly in the US and in Europe, and try to distribute it worldwide. Yeah, so that's what I do.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Japanese indie game designer Fukutaro. Uh, I'm sorry, I'm not good at speaking English, so my introduction is very simple. But I'm creating new, unique, and original mechanics games. I'm trying to 難しいな. I'm trying to do that
Yeah.
always.
Yeah. Great.
Great.
Okay.
So first of all, some of you may be familiar with what Japanese Dojin games are, but like maybe not. And then so I just before actually really, getting into the slides, but like wanted to kind of share. So it's actually all these self-published, kind of like really smaller games, but there are actually like a bigger ones just like this. But basically, these are all self-published, and it's people are like people can call it indie, but it's a little bit like a different in the background, and so we're going to actually introduce that part as well. But yeah, so that's the kind of the whole starting point of this panel. And so, first of all, so here are some key facts about the indie game design scene in Japan, and also Tokyo game market. And so there are actually lots of creativity there. And so it is actually said, so more than 1,500 Dojin designers there in Japan, and creating actually more than 1,000 Dojin games every year. So it's actually maybe not many people maybe know about this fact, and so I wanted to really kind of emphasize this. And then also the second fact is the Tokyo game market is really growing, and so it started as just a very small event with only 400 visitors back in year 2000. And now after about 20 years, and now it moved the venue to the bigger ones. I mean, I think it's the biggest convention center in Japan, located in Tokyo and called Tokyo Big Side. And then they now have 30,000 visitors for 2 days. So they grew 75 times in size. And this is, I think, really an amazing fact. But the third point is they really kind of start small and then do it small. So a Dojin designer can actually just design and print and publish a game for as low as $400 for maybe 50 copies. Maybe so it's kind of referring to kind of this size of like tiny game, but like, you can just publish and present your own creation to the public. Okay. Yeah. So then, so I'm going through briefly. Okay, I'm not really kind of like I'm not a language teacher or anything, but like just wanted to give some background on the definition of dojin and what's the kind of the word really means in the context of the Japanese game design culture. So Dojin, the Chinese character, literally means same people or like-minded people. And then this term, maybe if you are familiar with anime, manga type of content, maybe you have heard of doujinshi. The word doujinshi meaning it's like self-published magazines type of things. But the history of doujinshi actually can be actually traced back about 100 years, and when it was a Meiji era in Japan, and there were a lot of groups of the literature lovers and the writers and authors and the poets, and they started kind of gathered together, maybe 5 or 6 of them, and they started publishing their own works, and then that was the beginning of doujinshi. And so the dojin, when you say dojin and the dojin games, dojin board games, and so it's kind of like we're actually coming from that origin, and still they in the same culture. Okay. And so as I mentioned earlier, so dojin and indie, it's similar, but quite different. And then how are they different? And so there's the self-publishing aspect is the same, and then so it's also funded by maybe normally individual or small business, and then they just do it by themselves. But the goal of Dojin is not necessarily to make a business out of it, and so it's more like really just kind of express their ideas and this, and then to just distribute their creations to other people, and then so still, so there are always some the financial factors back that, but people normally really kind of that's not the initial goal of doing all of this. And the Dojin culture, yeah, as I said, so it's not only in the area of this tabletop gaming, and so it's not actually only limited to calling it Dojin games, but in many other areas such as like manga, anime, and literature, and music, craft, and probably some like figures and models and things like that, and pretty much everything can be Dojin, especially in Japan. And so if you call it just simply indie, that's totally possible, and that's correct, more than 100% correct. But still, like something culture can be lost in translation, and so that's why actually we like to call it Dojin rather than indie, and so yeah, that's why actually we put a little bit of emphasis on that. Okay. And so the characteristics of the kind of the Dojin culture in general, and then so all those works are self-published and small in numbers. Like say for example, like some games are only like published only like 20 copies or something like that, or up to like 100, maybe we have 500, or but in they are published in very small small numbers. And then creators refer to themselves as a circle. It's more like close to a group or a little bit like a club, and regardless of the number of its members. If it has like 5 people and it's still circle, if it's run by just one person or one board game designer, still they call it circle. So I think for example, so Fukutaro, I think he's running his circle called, so it's a Fukurodo, that's the kind of a brand, and also the name for it, the circle, or rather actually in Japanese it's like pronounced as sakura. Yeah. Yeah. And exhibitors and buyers are actually all treated as the same, and just the both parties are referred to as participants. And yeah, so they call just okay, we are all the same and we are all participants, and just some people are just selling some stuff, and some people are kind of buying it, but they even don't prefer using the word sell or buy, and then they prefer to use kind of like a distribute instead of just call like a selling their copies, and they're selling their games. And then and there is no distinctive actual divider between like a pro and an amateur. And so many of those creators are doing their Dojin activities as a hobby or part-time. But interesting thing is this is exactly the same for the Tokyo Game Market and some like the comic market and then all other conventions. But there are actually some pros actually running the booth and then selling their Dojin works. And I think this will be discussed in more detail in the kind of latter part of the panel. But for example, like there are some like really known Japanese published designers like Hisashi Hayashi and like Seiji Kanai, and you can find them at Tokyo Game Market selling their own like Dojin pieces. And so it's kind of really, really funky. Okay, and here are actually some data about the history of Tokyo Game Market. And then so the event was, as I said, like originally started by a group of just volunteer tabletop game fans in year 2000. And so there were only 32 exhibitors, and the visitors were only 400. And it started in a very small, like a community center meeting room type of venue. And then, as you can see, and then it actually just kept growing and growing, and that they moved the venue to a bigger one, and then also maybe something notable is in 2012 they actually started this Osaka game market as well. It's actually a annual event, not like a Tokyo Game Market. As you know, Tokyo Game Market they're held twice a year, in spring and in fall. Yes, but so actually, if we call game market, then there are actually not just two in Tokyo, but there are actually three, including Osaka. And so yes, and now just before the COVID, so in Tokyo, so visitors almost hit 3,000 people, and exhibitors. Actually, this is all like a total for combined total for 2 days, but there were actually about 1,200 exhibitors there. Yeah, and so I see a question. So, do these games ever get published multiple times? Um, that's a good question. And so normally once it's published, it's done. So if we miss to get a copy for that particular game market, and your especially it's like from a smaller circle, or or for who does only smaller, but and I think the chances are very low to get are like the same, if you miss it, to get the same copy of that game. So so I think yeah. So for example, this is I think almost like already sold out, and I think I asked the designer and for any plan for reprint, and he said no. So and then that's it. So that's actually that very cool aspect, but at the same time, it's a very kind of sad aspect of that the Tokyo game market, Dojin games. But it's actually that's like so for for some really serious fans, it's yeah. I can say it's a part of their kind of hobby and their excitement, and to go and get and secure their copy of the game they want. And are these games often simple, or can they be rather complicated? Good question. Some games are, I can say, very simple. Um, because just anyone can just publish and be a designer literally. So if you start designing a game 3 days ago, and then even this is just a really an extreme example, but then even without playtesting, and then you can just print and sell it. So then in 3 days what one could actually create. But on the other hand, some games are very, very, I would say, heavy, and complicated, very well, thought. And there are some types of games 90 minutes, probably BGG weight, a 3 point something games, or it's some war games, and or other ones are themed in history and things like that. There are just so many variety of games, I would say. So okay, and and so it's just I kind of quickly run through. So they are the Tokyo Game Market in early days. So it was purely this dojing event for really kind of geeky fun. It was a gathering of like-minded people, type of really kind of very very much clothes type of I think event, and not many people outside would actually know about that. And so yeah, it was that type of event, and that there were only, because I'm like, yeah, so really kind of like, geeky otaku type of exhibitors and the visitors as well. And there were a lot of like so-called like Ziploc games created and distributed. So this is yeah, this will be actually talked in more depth in the later part of the panel, or the at least the presentation. But like people just go print some copies like using the Xerox machine, and then put them in like Ziploc bags, and then make maybe like like a 20-30 copies and then sell it. But like just like those really geeky otaku game lovers, they just liked it. And then many of the titles and then fell under the category of like really kind of derivative works, just like it's doujinshi, more like it's not exactly fan fiction, but like a lot of like people in the manga and the anime community do using the characters or the their stories or the background of work, and then take it in and then kind of make their own work and then sell it. And then so there were actually many of that type of board games there as well. And then in sometime around like 2013 and 2016, and so since the time, yeah, that venue was moved from the smaller community center meeting room type of venue to Tokyo big site, and the trend to seem to have like kind of dramatically changed, and the Dojin atmosphere in their early days has just faded, and more is kind of like shifted towards the commercial, and um, and very much like a lot more people in the culture become a little bit kind of really less geeky. And then the number of the circles to exhibit increased, and it became more like so it's just a kind of this hidden meeting of the geeks, but like more like a festival open to everyone, and more diversity of exhibitors, and from so more like really business minded commercial type of like the game creators, and then still like some like really um yeah, really geeky type of the game creators, and then also really kind of new people like started to, oh, okay, yeah, we can make something. And then yeah, so new people just started actually coming into the community as well. And then almost all creators were like very much big, oh, but still pretty much were aspired to do so. And in recent years, maybe from 2017 to now, and then more games have so fancy artworks and packages and components compared to the early days, like Ziploc type of games. And then kind of like Japan anime, and so anime type of theme and artwork, and then like minimum stylish drones appears to be growing. And so yeah, a lot of the games are now really so early days there were actually maybe no concept of artworks or anything, but now then, so as I showed, so all of these games actually have really really beautiful artworks just like this. So, and in the and all these beautiful boxes. So they, yeah, so it's surely actually has grown and changed. So here are actually some of the pictures we would like to share, and all these like pictures are from courtesy of Mr. Ono, and he's been this kind of this tabletop journalist, from the earlier days, and because of the kind of the personal information protection policy in Japan, and so we kind of really blurred all the faces. Although it's not actually, this isn't presented to the Japanese audience, and so yeah, please bear with that. And so this is one of their early days in 2000. I think that 2000s, and then people are at birth, and then so as you can see, like the games are pretty much really handmade, and there are just so many people, like all these kind of typical game loving people. And they had this public auction for charity, and they auctioned for, I think, some like rare games and things like that. And back then in Japan, it was really hard to get even like just imported like Euro games and games from the States and things like that. And then, so I think the auction should have made actually pretty good money for charity. Okay. And yeah, so this is also a typical birth. So distributing the Ziploc games, as you can see on the table. And so yeah, so it just looked like this. Okay. And this is back from 2015 Osaka Game Market, and preparing for the play tables. And a lot of people. So pretty much like, as you can see, it's more like, rather than the convention, more like, local art fair, or like, very much like, like really handmade type of atmosphere you can see. And that's actually maybe one of the distinctions from the other type of conventions in the States and in Europe and all other part of the world. And this is, these are from 2015 and 2017, and inside of the venue, a lot of people. And this is from 2021 fall. Is it 2024 maybe? Because 2021 fall is actually coming. But anyway, so yeah, so we now, so in this presentation, we are now really focusing on this Dojin side of Tokyo Game Market, but there are actually about 100 like corporate exhibitors as well, and this corporate side is more like all other like so PAX and then Spiel in Essen, and then so they have all these this company booth as well. But this is this is after COVID, and so you see actually less people and some social distancing as well. Yeah. And so okay, so now it's a turn for Dan. But okay, I've got. I think we've got. Yeah, thank you. We've got a question. So, what are some games that you would suggest to players check out? Anyone wants to cover and answer?
Maybe I can answer that question. So, actually, in the next slide, I'll be talking about some of the more known titles that you can actually purchase in America or in Europe. So I'll answer that in the next slide. There was another question.
Yep.
From Frost. Okay. Yeah, so actually, I was just looking this up too. I am not exactly sure what that is. So if you're referring to like Dojin Circle, then that's exactly what Ayako is talking about. But yeah, if you can clarify that, that would be great. And then this one. So this is an interesting question. It actually comes up not just in games, but in Japanese mangas, anime, J-pop music. There's a lot of English titles. There's a lot of English phrases, even though it's mostly in Japanese. And I feel that is just a lot of times Japanese or Asian people think that Western culture is cool, and having like a Western or like English names on it is cool. Um, so I think that's where a lot of time you see those. In a way, it's similar to when you see like white Americans wearing a T-shirt with kanji on it. So it's a different culture. You kind of feel that, oh, that this is a little bit different than I'm a little bit different than that my buddy. So that's sort of why you see those English titles or English phrases in it.
Cool.
Okay. So from here on, I will take over, and then I'll have some time to answer more questions through my presentation. But I will be focusing on some of the characteristics of Japanese, indie Dojin games. How those are different than some of the published games in the Western culture, and how they're different from the indie games in the Western culture. So the first point I want to bring up is in Japanese Dojin games, there is a bit of mix of original work and derivative works, especially around game themes or game art. And this is very true. This is true for many other Dojin cultures in Japan. When I say derivative work, I mean, using a characters or using a theme or using a settings from some other established, IPs. It could be a movie, it could be an anime, it could be manga, you name it. And I would say that in Japan, some of these IPs are more lenient and understanding to derivative works. Not all companies are, but some companies have a specific guidelines on how you can use a derivative work, and it doesn't restrict you to just drawing it and sketching on your just sketchbook. But you can actually like Ayako said, distribute your work to fellow otaku dojin community. And the second point is, many games are self-published in very small quantities. So, when it comes to like, 25, 50 copies, there's really no, IP commercial licensing, and no one's going to be really enforcing or policing that. So that's another reason why there may be a little bit more derivative works in Japanese games. Second point is some designer they focus on what's currently hot, like internet memes or political events. Then in a very good way, they don't really care about the longevity of the game. They just want to express something, some ideas or some opinions that they have. So they make a game around it, and you see those in US as well. A lot of time, when a political event happens, you see some of these games pop up on Kickstarter. So in a similar way, but the difference is that it actually does get made, again, handmade, and it does get distributed. So two pictures here is one on the left. It says katsu curry. It's not time to eat that. Um, this was a political event when one of a politician was bashed by media because he was not responding to an emergency and he was too busy eating katsu curry at that time. So he made a game around this. And then on the right side, it says the end of Heisei era. So in Japan, we follow Western calendar, but we also have what's called an era, and it correlates to our emperor's life. So each time the emperor passes away, or in this case he stepped down, one era ends and the next era starts. So we had in the past 50 years we had a Showa era, and then we had the Heisei era, and then now we're in Reiwa era. So when the Heisei era ended 2 years ago, it was a big event, a national event. So again, a game was made around that national event. And then last point is, a lot of these Dojin game designers are using board game as a media to express their creativity, their opinions, rather than trying to sell big or make a name for yourself. I keep on saying this, but these self-published games are really handmade in very limited quantity. So most of the time you're not going to be making any money. I mean, the amount of time you spent is probably like you're if you consider that hourly wages, you're making like a penny per hour or something ridiculous. But it doesn't matter because you're being creative. You're expressing yourself. I want to do this because I want to do. I'm doing this because I want to do this type thing. And it's true for most Dojin cultures in Japan. Again, Dojin anime, Dojin manga, all those are very similar. Um, so here are some example of Japanese Dojin games that made it into the world. So this kind of answers one of the questions earlier. But again, all these Dojin designer started out small. So some of the more popular one that you might have heard of, or you can probably find these very easily on BGG or your local game store. So for example, Seiji Kanai, he is the creator of Love Letter, which was a sensational event for a lot of Dojin game designers in Japan. His game was picked up in America, and then it got reprinted, many tens and maybe 100 times, and it's available worldwide. And again, he started out just like everyone else, making just few copies of the games. Another designer, Hisashi Hayashi. His some of his work include like Sail to India or Yokohama. I have pictures there. Again, same thing. He started hand making the game, but now he's more well known, and I'm sure a lot of people are playing and appreciating his games. And then the third one is Susumu Kawasaki. He's more of a pioneer. So he's, in the earlier days, he actually his game made it to the Western culture. So some of his game is like Traders of Osaka or Ariko. So those are some games that you might want to try if you have never tried any of these Japanese designer games. Again, it illustrates some difference in typical games that you would see from US or EU designers. What I mean by that is a lot of times these are minimalist components. You're not going to find a Japanese Dojin games with many big miniatures or big boards. It's usually small boxes, usually just maybe cards and some tokens. So it's different. I feel that there's definitely some uniqueness to these games. Speaking of those games, I want to share how some of these games originated in the Japanese Dojin culture. Sometimes these smaller games comes from a community-driven project. Community, as in that otaku community. So, for example, Ziploc games. So there was sort of like a project amongst the designer to make a game and just pack it into Ziploc and then distribute it. Again, you're not really selling to make money. Maybe you're just selling to just pay for the cost of to print it or whatever. So a lot of time designer just thinks of a cool design, but they don't have the resource or they don't have the time to spend to refine it, to make a theme out of it, get a good component, get a really good printing, or maybe they just want to gain some interest in their design. Well, I think this is a cool game. My friends think it's a cool game. Well, let's see what people say, what the world say. So they will just pack it into Ziploc and distribute it. again, the designer is not really caring to sell to make money, but they just want to, make people try it. So, in this picture, this is an example of a game called Patchwork by Power 9 Games. He just printed, pretty much the rules in the game using his home printer, bundled it with a scissors. Why not? Scissors from 99-cent store, and some tape, and told the buyer, hey, play my game, but you need to make it yourself, like a DIY game type idea. So this is one way you might see the game being made in Japan.
I hear this game was published 20 or around 20 units only.
Okay.
This is another idea. So 500 yen games. So this was again a community-driven project. The designer constrained himself to make and sell a game for 500 yen. So it's about 450 in US dollars. And this is how the first edition of Love Letter came out from Seiji Kanai. Love Letter, if you don't know, the game consists of 16 cards. And you're just each player has one card in their hand, and each turn you draw a card, and then you discard one of the two cards. It's a very simple game, a simple mechanic, but actually there's a pretty good depth to the game, and it's a very good example of what you can do with just 16 cards. And you can actually make a pretty good game out of it. And again, like I said, it was picked up by American publishers, and then it was published worldwide. But this is how it started. Started in a sealed envelope. Again, just 16 cards, and that's all there was. And then the third example is, it's in Japan they're called business card games. But basically, it's a card game, and the cards are printed on business cards. The benefit of actually printing on business card is because it's a standard size cards, the print cost is really, really cheap. You can make hundreds or thousands of business card for chuck change. The thing though is that you're going to get let's say thousands or 5,000 cards, and now you need to manually reorg it and repackage it. So as you can see in the picture, this game has 30 or so cards. So each stack, basically, it's a human manual process of picking up one card from each stack, putting it into this box, and distributing it. So it's a lot of hard work, but something you can do if you're on budget, or again, just try to go small.
Everyone do that.
Yeah. So it's part of reducing and lowering the cost for like a printing, and is this maybe, or is it like a part of a fun, like doing it just by themselves? I don't know. Maybe both.
Yeah, those are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say it's probably both.
Not like a self-torturing. Like it's a lot of work. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to be wrapping up my part of the presentation. But before I wrap up, I just want to say that game market, as Ayako explained, it happens 3 times in a year, twice in Tokyo and once in Osaka. Osaka game market is usually in winter, sometime February, March around time frame. And then there's a Tokyo game market spring, which happens, usually around May, but sometime in April. And then the fall Tokyo game market, which is usually around November. Sometime around Thanksgiving. It could be on like first week of December. Kind of depends. But once everything settles down, I definitely recommend you to if you have a chance to visit, or this could be the reason to go visit Japan. come visit Tokyo Game Market, or game market in general. Yeah, so that's pretty much all I had. So we can answer some questions. First their game is
Yep. Also, the term "sako." Yeah. So and is it more like so the it's that word like is there kojin sako maybe? I don't know. There are actually two types of circles, and they'll go all over. And one is so one it is if it's just like it's about yeah, I don't recognize that this is the exact term, but like there are two types in it. So one is with so multiple people, and it's like a circle, referring to it's more like a Japan English and so Japan English and yeah. So meaning like so the group of people or like they I think or maybe a club type of thing. Maybe no club, maybe group is better. Yeah, but there is the term for kojin sako, and kojin sako means individual, like group, and so or group. It's actually the circle means group, but like they only actually has like just one person in it, and it's actually referred to as a kojin circle, and so maybe that's the term. I guess.
There are two meanings between circle. サークルって意味になんかもう
Yep.
その
I can translate. Okay.
いやいやなんだ出店者っていう意味がもうダブルミーニングになっちゃってて、で、本来はサークルっていうのは集まりだったんだけど、個人で参加してる人もいるから、そこがちょっとなんかおかしなことになってるんだと思う。
So the circle now has actually two meanings, and then so one is also referring to this like the group or people or maybe just one person who's running that activity. But the second meaning is so it's like more like equivalent of exhibitor from kind of the event perspective, and then so that's why actually there are a little bit of kind of I don't know.
Maybe double meaning.
Okay, over that so group and an exhibitor, and so it's interesting. So yeah, that's why actually so they call themselves sako or sakuru. Yeah. Maybe.
So the next question: is there a different category of games that one sheet games from Loser Dogs Torio Hojo fits into? Probably, I would say not really. It is in a way Ziploc game, but maybe like I showed in the earlier presentation, that those might be more of like a meme type game, a hot topic type game, where you're really expressing your opinion on what's going on in the world or what's going on in Japan at that time, and making a game out of it. Because you're not really expecting to sell many, so it ends up being distributed as a Ziploc game or 500 yen games.
Or I'd maybe call it a kind of a genre of like maybe satire. I mean, pretty much it's a kind of a last minute satire, and because they normally like just come up with the idea and then just put it into production like in the very last minutes, like only a week before the actual game market and things like that. So yeah, I think it's an interesting part of the Tokyo game market. Yeah. And okay.
Can Fukurodo give up an update on Galaxy Forgers?
Oh. So a little bit of a background, and then so Fukutaro and I were in actually the last non-pub back in it was January time, and we're part of the Harbor Game Jam, and we created this game called Galaxy Forager, but it's still on hold, and actually it's me who is actually holding it up, and then actually we need to maybe rather than Fukuroda self-publishing, but we would like to kind of pitch that, and so I'm actually helping it. So please wait for the update. Or anyone actually who's watching this and interested in kind of taking a look, and we do have the prototype and sales sheet and everything, and so we can discuss further.
Yeah, well, thank you for asking that. When is Ninja Star Games next Kickstarter? So yes, we are planning on the next one around September time of this year. Right now we are finalizing our last bit of playtesting and prototyping. And if everything goes well, then it'll be in September, right around Gen Con time. But yeah, I have actually a box art I can share at the end of this presentation.
Cool.
Are designers starting to come and bring their designs from other countries around Japan? Yes. So at Game Market, there are a lot of designers and circles from Taiwan, South Korea. Yeah, I would say mostly Taiwan and South Korea. There's definitely a bigger presence now than say 5-10 years ago, and those like Taiwan or Korean games, those are definitely getting more popularity. Not just in Japan, but also in Western cultures too. So sometimes you actually see a collaboration of Japanese designer and Taiwanese publisher, and they try to bring games to America. A lot of times you'll see, those sort of group effort, Southeast Asian group effort to make the game big. Is Tokyo Game Market typically cash only? Yes, I would say majority is cash only. Interestingly, Japanese entire economy is still heavily reliant on cash. There are a lot of stores that it's starting to change, but there are still a lot of stores that don't accept digital form of payments. So yeah, I would say if you're planning to visit Tokyo Game Market, then bring a lot of Japanese yen. Okay.
Yep.
So we have a few more slides just to wrap everything up. So it's back to you, Ayako-san.
Okay. So now it's a little bit about what I do as Big Cat Games.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Thanks. Okay. I am just a kind of like here, just one board game fan. Not really a publisher, but more like just a kind of individual important retailer here. And I've been playing board games more like a Euro type of games, so like for now like 15, 16 years, but up until like 2016, at the time I started actually Twitter, I never ever heard anything about like a Tokyo Game Market or all these like Dojin Japanese games at all. When I first actually found that, and then oh my goodness, and so I was just totally amazed, and that actually they really motivated me to kind of really make all these individual games, but also this like whole culture to the kind of really the rest of the world, because now I'm actually I live in here in Northern California, and then now it's I'm already actually calling here home, and so I thought it's great to get to kind of it's always good to like know about other cultures and good about kind of the diversity. This is always kind of really inspirational to just anyone, and so that's why actually I started doing this as a big kid games. And what I do just to kind of like I put everything to here, and then so kind of more like really try. So here's this like a really big language barriers, and then so my actually day job is more like translation localization industry, and I wanted to really kind of like make a good use of that, and then so doing a lot of like tweets and peer and on the SNS in English, and also like translating the rules and the things, and it's like supporting and helping like like people like running Kickstarter projects, and also running the booth at an event. And yes, and then also so now I've been doing this in a like a really small like it's very small in size, but I'm actually also thinking about making it kind of really bi-directional in the future, and so really want to introduce any other kind of indie like tabletop games in the States and the rest of the world to Japan, and so that's actually something I would like to do. And so anyone interested in that kind of going to Japan and or bringing your game to Japan, and just I'd like to discuss. Yeah, so that's pretty much it for Big Cat. So Ninja Star.
Yeah. Like I said, I run Ninja Star Games, and my goal as a board game enthusiast is trying to find great games that's created by talented designers, but maybe not known because again they're doing it small. So I try to find those and make them widely available. So some of the previous projects that I worked on are these four games: Yokai Septet, most recent, Arkham Ritual before that, Wolf and Hound. Actually, was a design by Fukutaro, and then the majority. And for upcoming project, I was sharing this earlier from the question, but I have a game called Reputation that we are planning to go live on Kickstarter in September. So about 3 months from now. So yeah, if anyone's interested, definitely please check it out. And if there's anything you want to discuss about Japanese games, or it's not by Ninja Star Game, but how if there's any way to get one of these games, feel free to contact me, and I can do my best to see if I can get you connected to the actual designer, or some people who might have connections. It might be just Ayako, but I'll try. I'll see what I can do.
Okay. I'm Fukutaro, the representative of Fukurodo. I'm creating games that have good balance between strategy and luck. I call this type of game as game in the real sense. Of course, it's my personal feeling. I'm always trying to make unique experience for the player by playing my games and exploring new mechanics. Previous games I published was published abroad. For example, the Festival of Thousand Cats was published by TMG 2019. I always confusing TMG and TGM. And my first game published, Familiar's Trouble, was published in Germany in 2018. 18? 合ってるな。And the past 2 year right side yellow game is was nominated by Game Market Award, and this is not published abroad yet. I guess this game has very unique and interesting mechanics. Unique draft mechanics. So, なんだろう。So, if you are interested in, please let me know, and I'm glad to spread this game all over the world. It's all. ちょっとむずいな。
Okay.
そしたら、
Right.
あとこれか。
Yep. And yeah, so here are some like resources or references, and then so they if like any of you are interested in like who do all these kind of like a small number like printings of like kind of these and then like these and then, so yeah, you can reach out these companies or printing companies in Japan, and also there is a website for a game market, and also if you're like looking for any more like Japanese Dojin games to purchase it, and then so it's a great source on of that is this board game site, and then so yeah, so and then I think they ship internationally as well, and so yeah, so it would be maybe convenient to
Great.
check out. Right. We are a little over the time. Are we good? Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, are we good or I think there's just a couple more questions.
Okay.
Okay, looks like we have a little bit more time. So, is there a difference between the Saturday and Sunday exhibitors at Tokyo Game Market? The different types of games? Yes, there's a little bit of difference. There's definitely more exhibitors or more, dojin circles on Saturday. Sunday is a little bit more family-friendly event. So if you're more of a like gamer, then maybe Saturday might be a little bit more towards you. And if you're if you're like a family gamer looking to play a game with your kids, then perhaps Sunday might be better. So yeah, I would say that's the main difference. There's some exhibitors, some circles that does both days, but not all of them. Next one is, do I understand that the Tokyo Game Market Award has undergone some changes recently? I believe yes. Fukutaro?
I'm sorry. なんて。
TGM アワード最近なんか変わりましたかって。
もう今やってない。
Oh, I think that has been discontinued.
ね。
No more.
名前が変わってて、アークライト大賞になった。っていうのもなんかその、アークライトとなんかその違うから、まあいいや、ちょっとそれで一応説明してください。
So it looks like it's no longer called Tokyo Game Market Award, but well, its replacement, maybe not a one-to-one replacement, but the replacement is ArcLight Award. ArcLight is the company that runs Tokyo Game Market.
Okay.
I think that's all. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in and listening to us. It was a pleasure speaking.
Yep. It it's definitely, and yes. So maybe it's very kind of like very different from what and how things are in the states and other part of the world, but there are this like many like board gamers and board game designers in Japan as well, and then they all love games, and so which is great, and so yeah. So hope there's like some takeaways for each of you. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and that was our pleasure. Really kind of joining the unpub and the non-pub event this way. So okay, so maybe it's a time to say bye bye. Okay. Okay, thank you.